Hi, welcome to the second part of this tutorial on the 2-5, as I call it, minor 7 to dominant 7. In this section we're going to look at the theory behind it and why I'm calling it a 2-5 and why it works and why we've used these particular shapes. Going to stay in the same key as for the previous video, so we're using these two chords, A minor and D. Okay, first of all, why am I calling it a 2-5? Well, as many of you will be aware, the 2-5-1 is like a chord progression in jazz and R&B, pretty much everything. So it's a 2, a 5 and a 1 chord. I don't want to get into too much detail on 2-5-1s because that's covered in a separate video. Here I just want to explain why this particular chord progression works. So it's the first two chords of a 3-chord progression. So the 3-chord progression is 2-5-1. Chord 1 is chord 1 in the key that we're actually in. So we're in the key of G. This is chord 2 in G. This is chord 5 in G. It's trying to lead us to G, the 2-5-1 progression. Once we have, it's a bit like when you play battleships or something like that. The more clues you get, the more you can put together what's actually happening. So with just one chord, if I just take an A minor chord, okay, well that's not telling me very much. I can add a 7th. Okay, that's telling me a little bit more now. But it's one chord on its own. I can't tell what key we're in from just listening to this one chord. Might be an A minor. They're all kind of A minor scales. Again, it's another thing we'll get into in a separate video. So we've got one chord here, A minor. It's not really telling me enough. The second chord we get is a D7. Okay, so now this is telling me a lot more. Now suddenly my brain is telling me, oh, I know what key this is. Because we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 notes here. With this chord, okay, well the A and the C, well they're already here. But these two notes, these are new. So if I overlay those, so basically I've got, and these two, now suddenly I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 notes. 6 notes. There's only 7 notes in a scale. So this is telling me what key we're in. We've got an A, we've got a C, a D, an E, an F sharp and a G. There's only one key that has those notes in it, and it's the key of G major. The only note we're missing is this one here. If I take this G and I put it down the bottom here, now you can start to hear it sounding pretty much like G major there, isn't it? The note we're missing is this note. So we could say, okay, well it could be this or this. In a major key, there's only one major key that has an F sharp and a C natural, and that's G. We could be in G minor, but we're not, and we know we're not for a very particular reason, and again that's covered in the tutorials on minor 2-5-1s. We go into that. Don't want to get bogged down with kind of detail on other stuff, just want to focus on these chords to give you a handle on why they actually work. So the reason why I'm saying it's a 2-5-1 in G is because once we put these collection of notes together and make these chords, there's only one possibility left. It can only be G. It could be G major or G minor. In this case it's G major, but it's the key of G, can't be anything else. Okay, so that's the why it's called a 2-5. And that's why it's kind of trying to lead us to G major, but maybe we arrive there, maybe we don't. Often with these with these kind of chord progressions, it never gets there in a kind of funk groove or something like that. We'd be just going around. We can go wherever we like. There's just these two chords moving up and down. Okay, so the second thing I'd like to look at is why am I using these shapes? Okay, so part of the reason is it comes back to the 2-5-1s. Again, don't want to get bogged down with that in this video because this is not about 2-5-1s. This is about this 2-chord sequence and how I can use it. So let's look at the chord voicing. So the voicing is the kind of shape of the notes. The arrangement of the notes. So if we took an A minor 7, here it is in root position, so with the A on the bottom. Let's say we're going to add a ninth. Okay, so here it is all laid out in the order that the notes just appear in root position. Okay, so if I tried to play that, well, it's quite difficult to play with one hand. I put my bass down here. I'd have to go up here for my D. It's not really working for me, that. So first of all, well, I've got my A here, so I don't need this A, so I can lose that. Okay, so that's working, but we've got a huge gap here in the middle, which doesn't really work very well. Doesn't sound good. So it's thin. Okay, so let's take this note. Put it down an octave. Okay, let's take this note, put it down an octave. We're there now. We could take this one and put it down an octave. Doesn't quite sound quite so good though. So let's come back up to here. Here we have that nice little crunch in the middle here. So we've got our root, we've got our 7, we've got our 3, and we got our 5, and we got our 9 here. Okay. Now when we go down to our D, okay, so we could play this D chord in any number of places. We could play it up here. It doesn't make sense to do that because we're coming from this shape. If we just, all we need to do is drop the thumb. Okay, now that's working just fine. We've got our root, we've got our 3, we've got our 7, we've got our 9, we've got our 13. If you're wondering why they're called a 9 and a 13, again, we go into that in another tutorial video, which is about chord naming conventions and stuff like that. The thing is with these tutorials that I'm doing is I want to kind of just narrow it down to a very specific topic so that you don't have to waste time learning a load of stuff that you're not interested in. So I don't want to get bogged down with a load of extra theory to explain a 2-chord sequence. If you're interested in knowing the theory behind the 2-chord sequence, I'm trying to give you the kind of bare bones of what it actually is. Just enough so that you can kind of understand. If you want to know more, look at some of the other videos and you look at some of the foundation videos, and that will give you a good grounding. But also, as I stressed in the previous video, in order to use these chords, you don't actually need to know any of the theory. You just need to know how to find them, and you need to be aware if you're playing them wrong. And a lot of that is to do with shapes and ear. And with the keyboard, we've got a visual interface here. It's ridiculous not to use it. So if you want to use it, you want to look at it and use it. Some people say you're not supposed to look at your hands when you're playing keyboard, but it's nonsense. I mean, use whatever tools you've got to get where you want to go. So that's why this sequence works. It's basically a 2-5 of a 2-5-1. So it's 2 chords of a 3-chord sequence, and the final chord, we never get to that final chord. If we played the final chord, it would sound like we'd arrived and it's all over. So major 7. Sounds like we've arrived. We don't want to arrive, we want to keep going round and round and round in different places. I just rounded up there by finishing on chord 1. I was in B flat here. So that's why these chords work. And the reason that we use these shapes is we're trying to find shapes that connect to other chord sequences that we might use. So there's a 2-5-1 sequence that uses this shape. We'll finish here. There's 2 main shapes of the 2-5-1. I call this the A shape. So we apply that to different kind of chord patterns. It might sound like I'm oversimplifying it, but I'm really not. So we want to use our subconscious and our shape memory to give us access to these shapes as quickly as possible. And then we might move to a different place in the keyboard, we can't find it. Okay, well that's where some of the techniques that we looked at in the previous video where we're counting, remember we count the first note, the last note, all the notes in between. We need to know what those gaps are, and then we can find that chord anywhere that we like. So I hope that clarifies some of the theory behind this. Like I say, I haven't got into like a lot of the nuts and bolts of it, because you might not feel that you need to know that. If you do feel that you need to know that, there are either already videos that I've done that will demonstrate that to you, or they'll be coming soon. So please check back. Also, please remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel, and keep checking back on my Patreon channel to see. I'll be putting new stuff up there all the time. So, hope that helps. Thanks for watching. Bye.